Imagine a world where every problem has been solved. No hunger, no danger, no illness, no need to work, no struggle of any kind. Every desire met before it becomes uncomfortable. It sounds like the destination all human effort has been aiming toward, the reward, the end of civilization. And then imagine what a species might actually become after many generations of that, with nothing left to strive against, nothing requiring courage, nothing demanding intelligence. Would they be the finest version of humanity or something else entirely? A novel written at the end of the 19th century traveled far into the future to answer that question, and the answer is still unsettling. That novel is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, a short book that essentially invented time travel as we know it in fiction and remains one of the most influential works of speculative literature. It follows an inventor who builds a machine that carries him hundreds of thousands of years forward, where he finds not the glorious future he expected, but something far stranger and more troubling. Beneath its adventure lies a searching exploration of comfort, struggle, and what human beings actually need in order to remain fully alive. From the start, the book studies the relationship between difficulty and capability. The traveler arrives in a distant future and finds a people who are beautiful, gentle, and entirely without strength. They are small, incurious, easily frightened, and unable to sustain attention or effort. And the author's explanation is what makes the story land. They became this way not through catastrophe, but through success. Every hardship that once required strength, ingenuity, and courage had been eliminated, and so the qualities those hardships demanded quietly faded away. The story explores the possibility that struggle is not the obstacle to human development, but its engine. It invites a reflection worth sitting with. What capacities in your own life have grown only because something required them of you? The novel also explores the way intelligence itself may depend on necessity. The future people the traveler meets have no curiosity, no science, no interest in how anything works, because nothing has needed to be figured out for a very long time. The author suggests that the restless human mind was sharpened by problems, and that without problems it does not stay sharp. The story examines the uncomfortable possibility that ease and dullness may be linked. It raises a question worth holding. Which of your own mental sharpness came from being forced to solve something you would rather have avoided? A central concern of the book is the division of a society into two groups whose fates become terribly intertwined. The traveler eventually discovers that the gentle surface dwellers are not alone, that another people live below ground, and that the relationship between them is far darker than it first appears. The author uses this structure to explore how a society built on a division can, over enormous stretches of time, produce something monstrous for everyone involved, including those who appear to have benefited. The story examines the long consequences of arrangements that seem stable in the short term. It invites you to consider how the conveniences of any comfortable life are quietly produced by labor that remains out of sight. The novel also examines the terror of scale. As the traveler pushes further and further forward, he begins to grasp the sheer size of time itself, watching the sun dim and the world grow cold, seeing that everything human, every language, every achievement, every name has vanished without a trace. The author renders this with a chilling calm. The story explores what it feels like to truly grasp how small a single life or even an entire civilization is against the vastness of time. It invites you to notice how differently your daily concerns look when held against a span that large. There is also powerful symbolism in the machine itself. It is a device that grants the one thing no human being has ever had, the ability to see what comes after. And what it delivers is not reassurance, but grief, because knowing the ending changes how the present feels. The author uses this to explore the mixed gift of foresight, the way we long to know the future while suspecting the knowledge would be unbearable. The story examines whether we truly want the answers we ask for. It invites you to consider whether you would want to see where your own path leads if the machine were offered to you. The narrative structure in which the traveler returns and recounts his journey to a group of skeptical listeners is an important part of the book's meaning. The story arrives second-hand, doubted by its first audience, and the author never fully resolves whether to believe it. The story explores how the most important warnings often arrive from someone who cannot prove what they have seen, and how easily comfortable listeners dismiss them. It invites you to consider how you receive the people in your own life who tell you something you would prefer not to believe. The novel also studies the ache of a person who no longer belongs to their own time. Having seen what he has seen, the traveler cannot resume his ordinary life. His dinner party, his colleagues, his everyday concerns have all been permanently altered by knowledge he cannot unsee and cannot share. The author explores the isolation of anyone who has been changed by an experience others have no framework for. The story examines the loneliness of understanding something that separates you from your own people. It invites you to reflect on an experience that changed you in ways the people around you never quite understood. There is also a moving thread about tenderness in a world without it. The traveler forms an attachment to one of the future people, a small, gentle creature who shows him kindness, and this fragile connection becomes the emotional center of the whole story. The author suggests that even in a diminished world, the impulse toward care survives, and that it is precious precisely because it is so fragile. The story explores how connection persists even where almost everything else has faded. It invites you to consider what remains most human about you when other capacities are stripped away. The novel also examines the assumption of progress. The traveler sets out fully expecting the future to be better, wiser, more advanced, because that is the story his era told itself. What he finds instead is decline, and the author uses this to question the comfortable belief that time automatically improves things. The story explores the difference between change and progress. It invites you to consider which of your own assumptions about the future are conclusions and which are simply hopes you have never examined. The emotional arc of the book moves from confident curiosity through horror into a chastened, melancholy wisdom. The traveler returns knowing more than he wanted to, and the author leaves him restless, unable to settle, driven to go looking again. The story explores how genuine knowledge can be a burden rather than a comfort. It invites you to reflect on what you have learned that you cannot unlearn and how you carry it. The book's deepest suggestion may be that human beings need something to push against. Not suffering for its own sake, but purpose, difficulty, and the necessity of rising to something. The author seems to propose that a species or a person without any resistance in their life does not become free, they become faint. The story explores the strange truth that we are shaped most by what we have had to overcome. It invites you to consider what your own life is currently asking of you and what it is building in you as a result. The book also gives quiet attention to what happens to a people who lose their memory of how things came to be. The future dwellers live among ruins and structures they did not build and cannot explain, using them without curiosity, unaware of the effort and knowledge that produced the world they inherited. The story explores how a civilization that forgets its own history becomes helpless within it, surrounded by inheritances it can neither maintain nor understand. There is also a striking moment when the traveler loses his machine and must survive without the thing that made him powerful. Stripped of the technology that defined him, he becomes just another creature in an unfamiliar world, forced back on his wits, his courage, and his hands. The author uses this to explore how much of a person's confidence rests on tools rather than on themselves, and what remains when those tools are taken away. The story examines the question of who a person actually is beneath everything that assists them. It invites you to reflect on what would remain of your own capability if the things you rely on most were suddenly unavailable. In the end, the time machine leaves you with an unsettling and useful question about ease. It suggests that struggle may be what keeps human capacities alive, that comfort taken to its limit can hollow out a people, and that the scale of time makes every certainty look fragile. A story that makes you re-examine your longing for a life without difficulty offers something genuinely rare. Books aren't just stories, they're mirrors that help us understand ourselves better. Comment below with the book you would like explored next and the difficulty in your own life that turned out to be the thing that built you. If this kind of thoughtful book analysis speaks to you, consider liking and subscribing so more of it can find its way to you. This video uses AI-generated audio and visuals for educational purposes only. This is just one reader's personal thoughts and interpretations.